Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I am super excited to be back. I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on going live today originally. I was thinking probably like Friday was the day I was thinking I would probably go live because before, I started missing out on all of my streams that I did for like that last month or so, month or 2 months. We had kind of gotten into a rotation where Fridays was the day that I was like starting to regularly go live, but I had a bunch of requests on Twitter to go live today. A bunch of people were like, Benji, go live today, go live today. So you guys asked, so I delivered. So we're going live today, and we actually have a ton of big topics to talk about. So I'm expecting this to be a pretty awesome chat, if I'm being honest with you, just because we have so much that we can discuss, so much late breaking, like in just the past couple days news. And obviously, one of the main big things that I know everyone's going to ask me about, and there's a lot of controversy over covering this or not, is going to be the Insomniac ransom leaks. So let me tell you how we're going to handle this and how we're going to do this. So first of all, I just want to say my thoughts go out to everyone at Insomniac. I feel genuinely horrible for them. I have a lot of Insomniac developers that follow me on Twitter, and I know for a fact that some Insomniac devs watch this live chat. They've told me they watched my live chat. So first things first, I want to say I feel absolutely horrible for everyone at Insomniac. This is really bad. This is worse than a typical leak, right? If someone just makes a mistake, accidentally posts something gets out there. We're dealing with a bit of a different situation because I've seen some people try and compare this to some other leaks we've seen in the past. And this one is worse than many because this was like a straight up ransomware leak, right? This is stolen information. It wasn't information that just leaked out through accidental means or something like that. This was a nefarious thing. So first things first, in case someone from Insomniac is watching this stream, I know some of y'all watch these live chats occasionally. My thoughts are with you. I'm sure this is an absolutely horrible, horrible time to be going through. Now, how we're going to handle covering this on the live chat, because I know, it was unavoidable with the way my sort of coverage works, right? It's very interactive, right? That's like the whole point of these live chats. It's not about, writing an article. It's nothing like that. It's my audience and what they want to talk about. So I can't have as firm of a stance as some people are where they're like, I won't talk about this at all. But there are going to be some key things that I will not discuss on this stream. So I want to get this out in front first. That way everyone knows the rules around how we're going to handle this Insomniac situation. First of all, if anyone asks me any sort of details about anything to do with Wolverine's story, anything to do with Wolverine's gameplay, anything to do with future Insomniac games stories, their gameplay, things like this that are leaking, like the actual details of the games themselves in terms of spoilers for stories, spoilers for characters, spoilers for gameplay. I will not read any of those questions out. They will not be answered, so don't bother asking me about anything to do with that sort of stuff because I'm not going to cover that. That's very, very tough to do to Insomniac on the games that they're pouring themselves into to deliver to fans. So we will not be discussing any Wolverine story, any Wolverine gameplay, or future games stories or gameplay or character elements or things like that are leaking. If you want to ask me about some of the sales data that has been coming out of this, the strategy stuff that's coming out of this, the roadmap stuff that's coming out of this, and the future of Insomniac, I will answer questions in regards to that because, frankly, at this point, it's everywhere, it's unavoidable, and those are actual. I don't enjoy the way this came out, right? It's absolutely horrible how it came out, but it is noteworthy news. So things like that, sales numbers, that sort of stuff, I will discuss, I will answer, but just don't say, hey, Benji, what do you think of Wolverine's story? Or, hey, what do you think about blah, blah, blah games characters being in it, right? I won't read that out and I won't answer that. So don't ask me that sort of stuff. We're talking actual noteworthy news components, not spoiling the games that Insomniac is working very, very hard to deliver for fans, right? These people are pouring years and years of their life into this. I don't want to just sit there and spam out, oh, hey, here's what happens in Wolverine, right? So we're not going to go into any of that sort of stuff. So don't ask me about that. But the other, sort of stuff we can discuss. So obviously, like I said, that's going to probably be where I guess the most questions are going to come from, is going to be in regards to that. Another huge breaking story that just came out today is that PlayStation 5 has passed 50 million sold through to consumers. That is absolutely incredible. Shipped numbers absolutely going to be, not absolutely, it's obviously going to be higher than sell-through. And maybe the most impressive thing about, well, there's actually two things that are the most impressive about this milestone. First of all, it was the biggest November for console sales in the history of PlayStation. That is actually kind of shocking, especially because as we saw in the US, November sales were a bit down compared to what we had seen year over year before in the US. But clearly other territories, particularly Europe, UK, things like that, were explosive. Not that US sales were bad. It's not that US there was no PS5 sold in November. It wasn't one of those situations, but it didn't look like what would be a record-breaking November for the history of PlayStation in the US. But clearly other markets combined with, US still having a big number, just not a record-breaking one, uplifted PlayStation 5 to actually the biggest, not just PS5 November ever. They said this is directly from Sony, that it was the biggest November ever for the history of PlayStation and console sales. There's just no way to spin that. That's an incredible result, right? Anytime you're breaking what's a holiday month record, that means you're selling some serious volume of units. So that's going to be the first thing that's most impressive about this PlayStation sales numbers that are coming out. But here's the second thing that I think is also incredibly impressive about this, and this was pointed out by Christopher Dring on Twitter. So back in July, right? This was only a few months ago. Back in July, PlayStation 5 was actually tracking 2 months behind PlayStation 4 launch aligned. And what do I mean by that? I mean like the sales volume, right? That whatever your sell-through number is, it was tracking 2 months behind where the PS4 was. So the PS4 was selling approximately 2 months worth of units faster than where PS5 had been. But here's what's incredibly impressive now. After this new number, they have shrunk that gap down from 2 months to basically a week, right? I mean, that's a big gap close. So that is also an incredibly impressive metric that we're getting out of these PlayStation 5 50 million sales numbers. If they can continue what we're looking at right now, it looks like it's going to start outpacing PlayStation 4 again very soon. And we all know how successful the PlayStation 4 was. So PlayStation 4 sold these colossal amount of units, insane revenue, insane profit margins. And, we had a few years there where PS5 was still selling well, but it was so supply constrained. There were so many issues going on there, shipment issues that, for a little bit, it was starting to track decently behind the PlayStation 4. Well, not only have they shrunk that gap, they've shrunk that gap massively. They're only tracking a week behind now. We'll have to see how things play out, but this is very, very encouraging for PlayStation 5, especially with how expensive it is, that it's pacing to be passing PlayStation 4 again very, very soon. So we can talk about PlayStation sales if you guys want to. Another huge news topic that literally just broke right before the stream started. Bobby Kotick is officially leaving Activision Blizzard on December 29th. I think a lot of people are thinking good riddance. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very happy about this news, but it is now official. We all suspected Bobby would be leaving once the Microsoft acquisition was finished. It's official, December 29th. Bobby Kotick is gone. And here's the part that I would say is a little surprising to me, something I didn't quite expect. Matt Booty is actually going to be kind of overseeing Activision Blizzard now. And I thought, and I think a lot of people thought, Activision Blizzard's so big that, they would appoint a new head of Activision Blizzard, right? And they did not do that. They more just rolled Activision Blizzard and all of its leadership under Matt Booty. Somebody posted a really funny comment reply to my tweet about this, and they said Matt Booty. Let me pull it up. Actually, it's really funny because I want to see exactly what they said. It cracked me up though. It was like a picture from SpongeBob, I think, but it was funny. Let me find it. Well, maybe I can't. It might take me too long to pull it up. I don't want to kill the momentum of the stream. But anyways, basically he had said, like Matt Booty's essentially saying, hey, I need help. And he kind of does, because the dude is overseeing so much stuff now. It's like kind of crazy, because Bethesda is also reporting to him now. Good luck to Matt Booty. You know, I wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully he absolutely kills it and does an amazing job. But dear Lord, the amount of stuff on that man's plate now is crazy. So Matt Booty is now currently overseeing them as well. So we can talk about that if you guys want to. Is it a good idea that they're not appointing a new head of Activision Blizzard? They're just having Matt Booty oversee it, or whatever you guys want to. And let me see. I think that's it for the major topics I'm going to highlight off the top. And then, of course, you know, you guys can ask me about whatever you want. All right, let's get rocking and rolling, everyone. In the very slim chance this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There will be polls, there will be interaction, there will be all sorts of stuff. There's going to be a few ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want. It pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can per stream. There's going to be a couple ways to guarantee that I get to your question or comment. One way is going to be, of course, the super chat method. Type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. Another way to guarantee that you get a comment or question highlighted in the stream is going to be by becoming a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 for a month, and basically what it gives to you is I guarantee that every single channel member gets at minimum one question or comment highlighted per stream. You basically get priority in the chat, and oftentimes channel members get multiple, you know, comments and questions highlighted. It's just I guarantee you that I give you at least one of them every single stream. I'm glad to be back, everyone. You know, last week was the first week I'd been back in like over a month because of mental health issues. And we're back. Boom, baby. We're rocking. We're rolling. We're back in the thick of things. And as I told you guys last week, I'm just like feeling so much better, man. I've really made so much progress, and I'm so happy about it. So let's get rocking and rolling, dude. Let's go, because we've got a lot to discuss today. So we need to just dive straight into it. Okay. We're going to have some super chats off of the top. Johnny G22 with a $9.99 super chat. That's incredibly generous and kind of you, Johnny G. Hey, Benji. Happy you're back on the live again this week. Have you played Phantom Liberty yet? Also, if Cyberpunk was released this year at this current state, would it have been game of the year? Excellent questions. I am still playing Phantom Liberty. I'm doing like everything in Phantom Liberty, the side gigs, everything. So it's taking me a bit of a while to get through it because it's a beefy expansion. I'm almost at the end of it. It's fantastic. It's one of the best single player expansions I've ever played for any game. I don't know if I'm going to instantly put it at number one, but it's definitely one of the best expansions I've ever played. It's going to be in my top 10 games of the year. I know it's technically an expansion, but who cares? It's my list, so it's my rules. Phantom Liberty is going to be in my top 10 games of the year list whenever I put it out, probably in like a week or less or so, right? So it's incredible. They absolutely killed it. Now, would Cyberpunk have been an insta game of the year? Like, let's say it had never released in the past. It dropped right now in the current state it's in. I don't know, because this year was like extremely difficult in terms of competition. You had stuff like Baldur's Gate, Zelda, Alan Wake 2. Like, you guys know the list. It was an incredibly stacked year. So would it have definitely like won game of the year? I don't know about that because the competition's so stiff. But would it have been on that short list? Would it have been nominated at the Game Awards, for example, if it dropped in the exact state it's in right now? There's not a doubt in my mind. The game has become absolutely fantastic. If you've never played Cyberpunk before, like me, I'd never played Cyberpunk until Phantom Liberty and 2.0 released. I cannot recommend it enough. Despite all the issues this game had at launch, it's in an amazing state now. It's an incredible action RPG. Could not recommend it enough. So would it have been nominated for Game of the Year? Not a doubt in my mind it would have been. I don't know if it would have won, though, because the competition's so fierce this year. But yeah, it's excellent. Can't recommend Cyberpunk and Phantom Liberty enough in its current state. I'm not vouching for how it was because I never played it, but in the state it's in right now, it's fantastic. All right. We got Glitch here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Glitch. That is very generous of you. Hi, Benji. Good to see you back doing live chats. Looks like Wolverine is not going to be coming out next year. Yeah, it's coming later than I expected. If Sony were to have a showcase next year, what games do you predict they will show? Great question. They possibly can show Wolverine, even with it being further out than I think a lot of us thought it was going to be, potentially. They could show it. It would be a bit early, just going by what it appears the timeline is going to be for Wolverine. But now that so much has leaked, maybe they'll feel more comfortable just showing it because they just know stuff's out there now, which is so unfortunate. I feel for Insomniac, but maybe. Games that I would expect to see at a showcase next year, Death Stranding 2 is an obvious lock, right? I don't know that Death Stranding 2 is coming out next year. I kind of have a feeling Death Stranding 2 is going to be probably 2025. But either way, like, we'll see Death Stranding. I'd be shocked if we get a PlayStation showcase and Death Stranding 2 is a no-show, right? So I would expect Death Stranding 2 there. They're going to have to, at some point, give us some updates on some of these games as a service games they have in development, right? Concord, I would expect to see Concord there. Fair Games, they'll probably show Fair Games there from Haven. So you would expect to see some of that stuff get detailed. We know Naughty Dog has 2 games in the works. They confirmed that whenever they released the press release for The Last of Us Online being canceled. We don't know how far along either of those games are. So potentially, if they want to tease a game a couple years out, you could see one of the Naughty Dog games being announced. I could definitely see that. I don't know that you would see like a ton of gameplay blowout or anything like that, but maybe they give you like a Naughty Dog teaser trailer for one of the 2 games that they're working on. Obviously, I think we all suspect one of those games is The Last of Us Part 3. The other one I could easily see being a new IP. Maybe they tease the new IP. So that is one. And I would also very much expect to see, if it's next year a showcase, I would definitely expect to see Ghost of Tsushima 2 announced. Again, I don't know if that's going to be a 2024 game or not, but Ghost of Tsushima released what? Was that 2020 that Tsushima released? I want to say it was 2020. Let's see. Yeah, 2020. So a showcase next year, that would be 4 years after launch for Ghost of Tsushima. That's the right sort of timing you would expect for a new game announcement. You know, maybe not necessarily a launch, but you would expect 4 years after releasing their last game, Sucker Punch would at least be ready to show something. So that's some of the stuff I would expect. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of, we've talked about this on the chat a lot. Right now, Sony's next year looks really barren in terms of first party. They've got a bunch of exclusives lined up for next year. They got Rise of the Ronin. They got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But in terms of from like PlayStation Studios themselves, it looks kind of light next year. But a big part of that is just because so many studios don't have anything announced. So it could be that there is some really big games from PlayStation Studios hitting next year. It's just hard to know because so many of their teams just don't currently have games announced. So we'll have to see. David Taylor has re-upped their membership for 8 months. Thank you so much, David Taylor. I very much appreciate that. Everyone that hits that 8 months milestone, I'm so thankful for that because that means you've basically been a channel member since the day I started channel memberships. So thank you so much. Also, thanks for a great turnout in chat. It looks like we're headed to over 100 today. Not surprised with the really big topics we've got on the table. David Taylor is re-upped for 8 months. Wolverine has terrible luck. I remember when the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie leaked without finished effects, an improvement in my opinion. Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. Like I said, I know people at Insomniac, not just one. I know multiple people at Insomniac. Multiple of them follow me on Twitter. Some of them watch these live chats. They've directly told me that they've been in my live chats before. So I feel really, really terrible for everyone at Insomniac, especially for how this leaked, right? That makes it worse than a normal leak. We said that earlier, but it wasn't just, oh, someone made a blunder. Oops, I accidentally posted an asset, somewhere I shouldn't. The fact it was maliciously done, that makes it far, far worse. So I feel horrible for everyone at Insomniac. This has got to be very, very hard for them to go through. Benji with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Hi, Benji. Sony AAA gaming cost has to be a concern. $315 million for Spider-Man 2 is insane. Rift Apart not profitable is concerning. Thoughts? Well, Rift Apart actually did become profitable. We found that out through a later slide. The first slide that leaked, again, I feel so bad talking about some of this stuff. This sort of stuff is just the sort of thing my community is going to ask me about. For anyone that's been joining the chat recently, because we have a lot more people in chat now than we had when I started, I'm going to reiterate the rules really quick about how we're going to talk about Insomniac. Do not ask anything about story details, gameplay details, character details, etc. for these future well, I mean, some of it's going to be Marvel. Like, we just got to put that out there. But don't ask, you know what I'm talking about. Spoilers for the games themselves in terms of the content inside of the games. I will not address any of that. Don't even bother asking. I will ignore it. If you want to ask me about numbers, if you want to ask me about strategy, if you want to ask me about roadmap, you know, that's the sort of thing that obviously my community is going to be interested in. You guys can ask me about that. Do not ask about spoiler details in terms of the content of the games themselves. They will not be read out or addressed. Now, and it's not just a Sony thing. So Sony AAA games are incredibly expensive. That's very clear. But make no mistake, so are Xbox games, so are Ubisoft games, so are EA games. Like, all AAA is getting insanely expensive, right? Insanely expensive. And we talk about this all the time. A huge part of it is how long games take to make. Now, it's not the only element, right? That's one thing that you're seeing through these Spider-Man games, is that licensing alone on Spider-Man and Marvel games is very expensive. So that's also affecting the budget of some of this stuff. But make no mistake, AAA games in general across the board industry-wide are something very concerning. They're getting insanely expensive, to the point now that they're starting to surpass, you know, the biggest Hollywood tentpole movies you see, right? Not all of them. You do see 300 million budget Hollywood movies. Infamously, the newest Indiana Jones movie carried a $300 million price tag. So, but it's getting crazy, right? Where the dollar amounts are getting so high for AAA. And definitely there's no doubt that part of it is because these games are taking 5, 6, 7 years to make. You're having to pay potentially hundreds and hundreds of devs, you know, over huge periods of time to develop these games. That's going to make your budget astronomically skyrocket. And then, you know, you also have situations like the licensing where that makes it go even higher. So, you know, it's very concerning, I would say, in general. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing so many publishers really double down on established brands, established IP, and you're seeing a lot of them be pretty risk adverse in terms of trying to go out there and make very brand new, like, things that you've never seen before in terms of new IPs and stuff like that. You know, I'm always on all of these earnings calls. I mentioned how EA just last year mentioned how they're doubling down on their established brands. They're going to be more careful about, you know, launching new IPs and things like that, essentially signaling to their investors, expect more Battlefield, expect more Star Wars. EA's making Marvel games. Whenever these games are getting so expensive, it makes it much more dangerous purely in terms of financials, not the art side of things, but purely in financials, to be bold enough to be like, hey, we're going to launch a brand new IP that no one's ever seen before, that has no established brand concept, and we're going to give this thing a $200 million plus budget, right? Whenever you're someone that's just looking at the financials, that looks real scary, right? That looks a lot scarier than, hey, for example, what's going on with Insomniac, we're going to make a Spider-Man game, because I'm sure they love working on Spider-Man in general. I'm not saying money's the only motivator here. I'm sure they love making Spider-Man, but it's also a much safer bet to make a new Spider-Man game than it is to launch a brand new IP, right? So AAA games are getting very risky. Yeah, I mean, they've always been risky, but it's getting crazy risky now just because how expensive they are. And thank you for that super chat, Benji. And we'll run our first poll. We'll run our first polls. I love doing the polls. You guys love doing the polls. The polls are fun. A huge part of why I like doing these live chats isn't just to hear me talk. It's to hear what you guys think. So let's ask, how do you feel about Insomniac's Marvel push, we'll say, right? Because they're making a lot of Marvel games, right? We'll say, love it. We'll say, medium. which I know sounds funny. We'll say you love it, you're pumped. We'll say medium feelings, not strongly either way, essentially. Or we'll say dislike the amount of Marvel. Okay. So you love it. Bring on. Love it. Give me more. Medium feelings. Not strongly. So, or dislike the amount of Marvel. Okay. First poll is now live in the chat. All right. RD with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, RRD. Does Xbox... Let me make sure I didn't pass up any of the super chats. I don't think so. No. Does Xbox having better margins... Let me make sure my mic's still good. Yeah, we're good. Does Xbox having better margins than PlayStation mean it's doing better business-wise or no? And thoughts on them leapfrogging PlayStation from this Insomniac's leaks? Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question. Here's what I'll say. Do I think that Xbox is doing better business-wise than PlayStation? As of right now, I would say no. I would still put the overall business of PlayStation ahead of Xbox. The reality is that, you know, I know things are about a lot more than just hardware sales, and just wait, Xbox fans. I know some people are going to get mad at me about that, but just hold your horses for a minute. If we're looking at right now, today, the state of things today, I feel that right now, PlayStation is in a better brand position than Xbox is. They have higher hardware sales by a massive degree than Xbox does. They have first-party games that are selling far higher volumes than Xbox does. So if we're looking at the today, right now, today, the state of the market today, I think PlayStation as a business is better positioned for the current landscape right now. Now, in regards to the Insomniac slide about leapfrogging and the future concern, I would say that in some ways, Xbox in the future is potentially, and I got to use the word potentially because you always got to be careful about predicting the future. The reality is none of us know, right? If I was an amazing predictor who knew everything about the future, I would be a billionaire, right? I would know exactly which stocks to invest in and exactly the future. None of us know that. But Xbox is positioning themselves right now very well in the future, where their games are going to be so ubiquitous on PC, where they're so easy to access on console, where they're just putting them everywhere they can. The subscription model makes their games very, very easy to access in general through the Game Pass subscription. There's going to be some debates about whether that subscription's a good thing or a bad thing. Sony seems skeptical, even internally, over this, that they can, you know, continue this sort of strategy with Game Pass. But I would say, you know, one thing Sony themselves admit in the document is that they feel in some ways that Microsoft's future positioning is also looking strong. So current day, right now, do I think the PlayStation's better positioned than Xbox? Yes. In the future, we're going to have to see how that plays out, RRD, because things are definitely shifting. I think Sony might have to get a little more aggressive on PC. I think that's probably the biggest differentiator between the two right now in terms of their positioning for the future. PC just keeps becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger piece of the pie. We keep continuously seeing that. Steam keeps hitting new record numbers for engagement, for, you know, concurrent users. We see that just keep getting broke over and over and over again. PC is becoming more and more important. And Sony's not unaware of that. That's why they're porting their games there. Maybe that's going to have to become a little bit of a faster job on the porting. We're going to have to see how it plays out. But I would still lean PlayStation right now today as being in a stronger position than Xbox. The future, now that Xbox owns Activision Blizzard, now that they're going to have all these, you know, various games as a service that are already established, like WoW, like Call of Duty, like Overwatch, etc., that are going to come from Activision Blizzard. You know, things in the future we're going to have to see. It's going to be very interesting. We're looking at a fascinating upcoming, you know, 5 to 10 years on the market. Console specifically wise, which let's be honest, a lot of people in my audience are going to be console players. I don't see how Xbox can ever close that gap with PlayStation. I think PlayStation more than likely is going to always be in a far stronger position on console. The question is how Xbox can position themselves, more broadly. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Glitch with an incredibly generous 20 super chat. That's incredibly generous, Glitch. You did not need to drop something that heavy. And thanks for the turnout today. It's fantastic. We've been over 100 for quite a while now. Looks like for Sony, game budgets are crossing 300 million. We just talked about this. Do you think Game Pass prices to increase next year? Also, do you think Xbox has similar budgets for their AAA games as they can't expect high sales due to Game Pass? Some really good questions here, actually. We already talked about how AAA budgets across the board are going super high. Here's the thing. Some people need to be a bit careful looking at the budget expectations for things like Spider-Man and future Marvel games from Insomniac, because keep in mind there's a hefty licensing fee attached to that. A lot of these Xbox games, or even other Sony first-party games that aren't licensed, think Naughty Dog's games, right? Think Santa Monica's games. Those are completely internally owned. They're not paying a licensing fee to anyone. Those are going to still have super high budgets, right? We've already seen some of those are apparently crossing 200 million. But these Marvel games are going to be even more expensive than your regular AAA games simply because the licensing fee attached to them. Marvel's getting a lot. I ain't going to go into super details over it, but Marvel's getting paid for these games, right? Marvel and Disney, they're making a lot off of this. So that's also driving the prices up. Do I think that Xbox games are just like super cheap, like Sony's games are 200 million and Microsoft shipping games for, 50 to 80 million? No, not at all. Xbox games are probably also, many of them, in that 200 million plus range. Wouldn't shock me at all, right? The Halo Infinites, it's incredibly expensive. The next Gears of War, it's going to be incredibly expensive. The next Forza Horizon and Fable, they're going to be very expensive games. So don't expect this giant gap. Like, it's only Sony. Only Sony's somehow stuck with these massive AAA budgets. Everybody's stuck with these massive AAA budgets. One thing Microsoft does seem to be doing a little bit more than Sony as of now, and this could change. It seems that Microsoft is currently allowing their studios to, experiment more with some smaller stuff too, like some Pentiment, right? That's an Obsidian game, and some people, when Pentiment first came out, they were like, oh, that was a game from before Microsoft. That's not true. Josh Sawyer himself, who literally made the game, said this game wouldn't have existed without Xbox. So it does seem that they're willing a little bit more than Sony as of now to experiment with letting their teams do some smaller projects, which will, of course, carry much smaller budgets. Sony seems, as of now, very focused on only the biggest, highest budget AAA games. But like I said, make no mistake, the giant flagship Gears of Wars, Fables, etc., they're carrying just as hefty price tags as the, God of Wars and Naughty Dog games, right? Or at least very similar. They're going to be very similar ranges. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. One thing that I think is big is the money and sales Sony had to guarantee to Disney/Sony. It's real. I mean, I hate to say it, but this stuff's all very, very real. There's no debate on that. If true, I can see Microsoft having the same requirements. You mean in terms of like if they tried to get a Disney deal? Well, they do technically, right? Blade. Now that they have a Blade game announced. Yeah, I would expect that the licensing fee is very high on Blade as well. And probably also on Indiana Jones, because that's also Disney. So one thing that became very clear from, some of the stuff that's leaked is that Disney gets paid. If you're using a Disney license, they don't let you off the hook cheap. You're going to pay them, and you're going to pay them a lot of money. So, that I would say yes. It's not going to be that just, you are correct, Highlander. It wouldn't just be that Sony's paying a lot for their Marvel license. Blade's going to carry a heavy licensing fee, and so is Indiana Jones. Maybe not the exact percentage. I mean, maybe, but the IPs that Insomniac's working with are like essentially some of the biggest, right? They're working with Wolverine, who is just one of the most popular superheroes there is. They're working with Spider-Man, who's one of the most popular superheroes there is. So who knows? Maybe Blade would be a little bit cheaper than the licensing on those. I mean, we just literally don't know. But make no mistake, it's going to be a lot. Yeah, it's going to be a lot. They're not getting those licenses for cheap. All right. Benji with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Benji, gaming media are not as cautious with Capcom, Ubisoft, or Rocksteady leaks versus Rockstar and Insomniac ones. Why the same ethical standards? Well, I've always been a lot more careful about this. I've always been a lot more careful about what I cover. Like when the Xbox leaks happened, I kind of avoided posting a lot of it. Like I posted about it on Twitter. But I didn't share like tons of the slides and stuff, or at least not that I can remember. I remember like it's weird, right? It's a bit of, and same thing with the Grand Theft Auto trailer. I tweeted out that I thought the trailer was awesome. I saw the leaked trailer, but I didn't post the leaked trailer. I didn't share the leaked trailer. You know, I just tweeted about it. Wow, I watched the trailer. It looks amazing. Didn't tweet about the details until the official upload came out. I talked to a lot of devs across the industry over the years. It's not that I'm like sitting there every day just, you know, in the DMs with devs across the industry. But, you know, over my years of coverage, a huge amount of devs follow me. Like I'm very grateful for it, but it's kind of insane, from Sony employees to Nintendo employees to Xbox employees to Ubisoft to EA to Larry and I mean Remedy, everybody, right? I'm very fortunate in that regard. This isn't me being a humble brag. It's me saying, I have interactions with tons of devs, and I used to have a bit of a different opinion on leaks in the past, right? In fact, some people that have known me for a super long time know that, you know, a long time ago, there was a time I was interested in being a leaks guy, right? I was like, oh, I want to find out the leaks. I want to try and share this stuff. And that, my opinion on a lot of this really changed once I had some conversations with some devs over the years where they've talked about how leaks have like destroyed morale at studios. And nowadays I'm a lot more cautious with this. Now I can't speak for everyone, right? Everyone's going to handle how they cover leaks in different methods. And that's going to be an individual basis. I think one reason, Benji, why people feel really scummy about the Insomniac ones, which is, by the way, very similar to the Capcom situation. That was also a ransom situation. But I think that is part of it, is that there was a ransom involved here. And employee data was shared too, which is also really horrible. So I think, again, I can't speak for everyone. I can just say why I'm guessing some people feel a lot more icky about this than maybe some other leaks. And again, I know that the Capcom one was also associated with a ransom, but I think that's part of it. It feels so malicious, this leak. It doesn't feel like an excited gamer got a hold of an asset and posted it on YouTube or Twitter because they were like, oh my God, look at this leak I found out. I'm excited for this game. I want everyone else to know about it too. You know, this one felt like malicious, like they were purposely trying to harm Insomniac as a company. And I think that is what makes, you know, people so upset, right? Because like the Rocksteady one, for example, wasn't really like that, and the Grand Theft Auto one doesn't appear to have been like that. It was just somebody chasing clout, you know, trying to get attention for leaking Grand Theft Auto 5. It didn't feel like, hey, I'm holding you ransom and trying to burn your company down, whereas that it feels a lot more malicious with Insomniac. But again, I can't speak for media members on this. I haven't actually talked to a single, well, no, that's a lie. I have talked to a couple media members about covering this, but not tons. So, but I will just say, me, myself, I'm a lot more careful with how I talk about leaks and stuff after talking to devs. Max Mini dropped a super chat, but removed their message. So Max Mini, drop your question or whatever, or your comment down into chat, and I will happily get to it. Thank you for your first super chat as part of the stream. That's very, very generous. It says that this is your first super chat ever. I really appreciate that. Apparently someone's calling me names in streams, but I don't really care about that. But thank you, JCat, for moderating. I appreciate that. Glitch with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Glitch. Microsoft releasing next Xbox in 2026. I don't think they're doing that. Do you think Xbox doesn't want to directly compete with PlayStation and give themselves more room to sell hardware? It may be a nightmare for third parties. Well, personally, I don't believe that there's going to be a new Xbox in 2026. I know that one, I think it was an AMD leaker. We talked about this on the last stream, indicated that they had heard that there's going to be a new Xbox in 2026. Again, I'll just say the same thing I said last week, Glitch. I don't know that you were in last week's stream or saw it. I'm doubtful about a new Xbox in 2026. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no inside information on this from any sources anywhere. So maybe that this rumor is true. It's hard for me to believe that, but I'm personally taking the stance that I don't believe their next generation is coming in 2026. We have indications from court documents, which, dude, that's under oath. That's a court document that both Microsoft and PlayStation are looking at 2028 as the next gen launch year. That makes more sense to me. An only 6-year cycle for the Xbox Series consoles seems strange. Especially with the staggered launch that we saw this generation due to the pandemic. So I'm extremely doubtful about all of this, if I'm just being honest with you, Glitch. The thing I said last chat is that if there is a new Xbox coming in 2026, the only thing I can think of is that there's also they're doing some sort of weird thing with the series where it's not really generations anymore. And I said maybe, and again, this is a maybe. Like I don't actually think this is happening. I'm just saying, let's say Phil Spencer himself said, Benji, I'm launching a new Xbox in 2026, and he gave me no details on it. The only thing I could think that would make sense about that situation would be that maybe they would like stop Xbox Series S support, and then they're moving almost to like an iPhone model where there's not hard generations, and then Series X becomes the baseline, and whatever the new Xbox is, now you have to support Series X and whatever this new Xbox is. And it's not necessarily a hard generation because the X is still a current console. It's just like, hey, we're moving to an iPhone model where at some point certain Xboxes lose support, but we still support some. That would be the only situation that would make sense to me. A brand new, fully new generation, as we typically think of generations in 2026, seems far too early for Xbox, especially with, what happened with, the pandemic. I just can't see it. I still think that both Sony and Microsoft are probably looking at 2028 as the court document said. And thank you, to the mods. I know JCat's in here helping mod the channel, which is awesome. Thank you so much. All right, super chats are cleared, so let's get to channel member questions. And then we'll start getting into the free ones. Joe Secchi saying, yo, Benji, what is up? 2 chats in less than a week. Lovely. Great to see you, Joe Secchi. Yeah, we're back, baby. Like I said, I thought I was going to do Friday. I'm pretty sure it was Friday last week. But I had a lot of requests to go live today, so I decided to go live. And it's been a great chat. We've been over 100 almost the whole chat. I appreciate it. Joseki, I want to start with a bit of a rant. I find some of the reaction to Insomniac's ransomware very hypocritical. Here we go. When it was Capcom and Nintendo's turn to have company and personal data leaks, no one in the press seemed to care. Now that it's Insomniac, a US-based dev team, then suddenly many are saying that is unfair to cover the info. I'm sorry, but that's BS. They are journalists, not PR. Then coming to the question, the confirmation of the 50 million sold at December 9th for PS5 to me is the final proof SIE won't hit 25 million this fiscal year. In fact, I'm even doubting they'll surpass 23 million. Thoughts? Okay. So like I said earlier, Joseki, the first part in regards to like how media are covering the Insomniac leaks, I can't speak for other media. I cannot tell you. All I can tell you is how I'm choosing to cover it. The way I see the situation is that certain things I don't think are off the table to discuss. I would say especially things that are like legitimate news items, right? Here's the thing. This is not how you want this data to come out, right? Clearly, no one would want this sort of data to come out. But we get so little behind the scenes financial information about how games operate, how they run. It's very, very different than Hollywood. You can look up the budget for essentially every Hollywood movie, right? There's going to be some rare cases where you can't. You can find out intricate details of essentially every Hollywood budget movie. You can find out what the production cost was. You can find out what the marketing cost was. You can find out how much they pay actors. Like, all of this stuff is essentially publicly available information. The video game industry, we get essentially almost nothing. So getting this financial information, and again, you hate to see how it comes out. I never would ever dream of wanting this information to come out in this way. But that's valuable information for understanding how the games industry works, especially on a AAA level. So I don't think that sort of stuff is necessarily or should be off the table for discussion. The thing that I do think I'm not a fan of is the people that are going out there and purposely sharing like tons of like the leaked story details, the leaked gameplay details. Like, to me, this is less legitimate newsworthy items and more just spoiling something that, you know, this company and all its employees are working very, very hard to try and deliver for fans. So that sort of thing, I ain't touching it. I have no desire to touch any of that. I have no desire to share any of that information. But that's just my personal stance. I can't tell you, you know, how IGN's going to choose to cover. I can't tell you how GameSpot's going to choose to cover. I can't tell you how Kind of Funny's going to choose to cover. That's going to be all on each one of their own, and they got to make the decision on how they're going to choose to address things. In regards to will Sony hit their 25 million for the fiscal or not, here's the thing. Last week I was saying I didn't think that they would probably hit it, but then you get that record-breaking November. We need to see how December shakes out. Here's the thing. They need a giant Q1. That's just the truth either way, right? Regardless, even if they have an excellent December, they need a very, very strong, and I know it's actually Q4, the fiscal, but I mean Q1 calendar. They need January through March to be absolutely huge for them in order to hit that 25 million number. So I'm not going to take a firm, hard stance they won't hit it, because we've seen Sony hit some insane Q1s before. Last year they had a massive Q1. I'll say it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, though. Let's run a poll on it. Let's run a poll. All right, so we're going to end the first poll. I asked you guys, how do you feel about Insomniac's Marvel push? The number one was 40% saying, love it, give me more. So almost half, 40% of you love it. 33% of you say medium feelings. You don't feel strongly either way about it. You're kind of just indifferent, whatever. And 26% dislike it. Overall, I would say, and again, small sample size, just looking at my audience, you know, you're looking at over 70% of people not necessarily strongly against it. That's a pretty good result, right? So I think they're all right. I think they're fine. And in fact, a lot of these games are going to sell a lot. So they're very strongly positioned with this. Okay, let's run the second poll. Let's ask, will Sony hit their 25 million fiscal year forecast? Are they going to do it, guys? It's a simple yes or no. Yes, they will. No, they won't. Keep in mind, guys, this is fiscal and not calendar. So essentially, it's going until March of 2024. All right, let's get back to some more channel member questions. Benji saying, great to see you again, Benji. Great to see you as well, Benji. Great to see you. Hey, JCat. JCat saying, hey, how's it going? It's going great, JCat. Thank you for being here, helping mod. Apparently, there was some moderation that was needed, so I appreciate that. Usually, I have a very positive, very great chat. So thank you for help moderating. Compared to a lot of channels where people are constantly getting timed out and banned and stuff, I'm very thankful. We have overall, we have a great community here. But thank you for doing the bit of modding that you needed to do, JCat. And JCat also says everyone talked about the Capcom leaks freely with no caveats and no concern for their employees' personal data that leaked. That's such hypocrisy. Yeah, a lot of you guys feel really strongly about this. I would say that the closest situation the Insomniac leak is to the Capcom. Yeah, those are the most comparable ones. I would agree. Joseki, when I asked about Marvel, I don't even have a PS5, so genuinely no strong feelings either way. All right. Highlander, dreading this weekend as I have things to put together for my daughter for Monday. Same, bro. Same. All the parents out there, good luck to you, because we're all about to... A lot of us, at least, are going to have to put together presents for Christmas. So, Highlander, I'm in the exact same boat, buddy. Starting tonight, I got multiple big things for my daughter. So, we're going to have to start putting that stuff together, buddy. Dank Meme Central X saying double standard coverage, in my opinion. They profited from other leaks that were caused from ransom attacks. Yeah, a lot of you guys feel very, very strongly about this. And I don't necessarily think you guys are wrong for that. It's this one is truly one of those where I feel, it's a bit of a gray area in terms of how you cover it. Everyone's going to look at this a little different. I can only tell you how I'm choosing to cover it. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Highlander, JCat needs a Christmas bonus. JCat rocks. We all love JCat. Glitch with a 5 super chat. It looks like PS5 Pro may be the best platform to play GTA 6. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's looking like if Xbox really has no mid-gen refresh. Do you think Xbox not releasing a Pro is a mistake and gives too much advantage to PlayStation? Great question. I'm of this debate myself. I've been asking some people in my small Discord, I have the same question. We've had this conversation. It's like, I think we're going to have to see. A lot of things are going to depend on how expensive the Pro is, how big of a jump it is visually compared to the standard PlayStation 5 and Series X. There's still enough details we don't firmly know about the Pro. But here's what I will say flat out, Glitch. If they really, let's say that the PS5 Pro is a substantial, like a very noticeable improvement compared to PlayStation 5 and Series X, and it's not priced insanely, right? We're not looking at some sort of crazy $700 or $800 console. It could be a big mistake or a big advantage. Yeah, it very well could. It absolutely could. We need to see how some things play out. There's still a lot we don't know about PS5 Pro. Microsoft has heavily indicated they're not launching a mid-gen refresh. But I will say, is the potential there that PS5 Pro could be a very, very big deal for Sony? Yeah, it's absolutely there. To me, the biggest factors are going to be, what's the performance difference? Is it negligible or is it very noteworthy? Put it this way. Let's say like GTA 6 is 30 FPS locked only on PlayStation 5 and Series X, but let's say the Pro can run this thing at 60 FPS. I mean, that's big, right? That's big. That's a big selling point. We don't know yet, right? We need to see the specs, and also we need to see the price. I suspect it's going to be expensive. I don't think they're going to go up to some crazy $700 or $800 device, but we need to see the price tag too. But it could be big. It very much could be big. Put it this way. Pro will never outsell base PS5. We know that. We saw that last generation. It's not like when I say it's going to be big, like all of a sudden most PS5 sold are the Pro and not the Standard. Standard will still be the lead hardware mover, but, Pro could add. Yeah, it could. We need to see some more details on it, but it could be a big deal. Heather, great question. Does learning how much a game costs to make change how you play or feel about a game? If you mean like do I automatically like just prefer games that, are higher budget, AAA, like over indies? No. Because literally, I was literally just thinking about this last night actually, which is kind of funny. One of my favorite games that's ever been made is an indie game, and it's Outer Wilds. If you've never played Outer Wilds, those of you that know me know I'm obsessed with space, astronomy, physics, all of this sort of stuff. And oh man, Outer Wilds, to me, I would put it in my top 5 games of all time. I would put Outer Wilds, and that's a small, indie game. So to me, it's not all about budget. It's not all about, AAA versus indie or anything like that. It's just a game by game basis. Now, if you mean, does the knowledge of how much a game costs, if you mean like how I feel in terms of if it was the right decision or not, or business or anything like that. You guys know how I feel about game costs, and like the most efficient way to bring that down is by reducing the amount of years it takes to make a game, which sounds, I know, for any devs that might be in the chat or watching this later, I always preface this by saying, trust me, I am fully aware that me saying games take too long to make is like, it doesn't mean anything, because there's a reason why games take so long to make. Trust me, Naughty Dog would love to be shipping The Last of Us Part 3 in a 3-year dev cycle if they could, right? There's reasons why games take this long. So every time I say games take too long to make, it's not me coming out there and being like, I've got all the answers, why aren't you shipping this game in 3 years, Naughty Dog? It's nothing like that. It's more just like, it's the number one leading factor about why games are so expensive. They take so long to make. If the industry can ever find a way to, across the board in general, right? There's always going to be exceptions. But in general, if we could get dev cycles more down to like 4 years, which again, I know is by nowadays standards, it's very quick. Which I know sounds crazy for like 10 years ago, but nowadays, from pre-production on, so many games are taking 5, 6. You're even seeing 7-year dev cycles. Like, if we could get games down to 4-year dev cycles across in general, that's the average. It would do so much for the industry, but there's a reason they take so long. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. With ABK under Matt Booty, when do you think ABK games hit Game Pass? And do you think Call of Duty in Game Pass will move units or not at all? Merry Christmas. I would suspect that you start to see a lot of ABK games start hitting next year. When and how often they hit, it's going to be hard to say, because a lot of, this stuff is tied up in licenses and all sorts of things like that. You saw Phil even, I think it might have been Phil. It was Phil or somebody address, like, don't expect like all the Activision games to just hit Game Pass at once. Like, I'm sure they're going to be coming in batches, right? As they get things like licensing and get things like contracts and stuff figured out. But you're definitely going to start seeing these as soon as next year. Do I think Call of Duty is going to massively shift units? I actually don't. I've been on the record about that for a long time. I don't expect Call of Duty in Game Pass to suddenly, accelerate Xbox consoles by this massive, massive margin, because it's still fully multi-platform. I've said this so many times that I don't see why, let's say you're a PlayStation-only gamer, right? Like, let's just say right now you don't want an Xbox. You're just a guy who plays on PlayStation. You're happy with your PlayStation, and you don't want to go buy an Xbox for whatever reason. I don't understand why you would suddenly, just because Call of Duty's in Game Pass, all of a sudden run out, buy an Xbox, which costs you hundreds of dollars, and then sign up for a subscription, which is also going to cost you a bunch of money, when you could just buy Call of Duty on the PlayStation you already own. Like, I don't know why you would do that. So, in terms of pure Xbox hardware unit sales, do I expect Call of Duty and Game Pass to just make Xbox explode? And now, Xbox is outselling PlayStation 5 on a monthly basis because of Call of Duty and Game Pass? No. What I do suspect you will see, though, is a big increase, not necessarily in hardware. I'm sure they'll get some hardware units out of this, but I don't expect a massive amount. Where you'll see the biggest growth factor is going to be in Game Pass itself, right? PC players that are playing Call of Duty on PC, that's gotten to be a decent number nowadays. There was a long time where Call of Duty was basically only a console game, right? The PC audience was so small for Call of Duty that, that happened for many, many years, like especially during like the PS4 cycle. And then the last couple of years, it's really started accelerating again. I'm sure you'll see a bunch of PC people sign up for PC Game Pass on it. If you are a multi-console owner, you own a PlayStation already, and you own an Xbox, more than likely you're already signed up for Game Pass. I feel like if you have an Xbox console, why wouldn't you have Game Pass? But maybe some of those people that are multi-platform that don't have a Game Pass sub that play Call of Duty would do it. But I think the biggest differentiator you'll see will be in Game Pass adoption, not in hardware sales. That would be what I expect. As always, though, I could be wrong. Okay. Every channel member, I think, has gotten at least one thing covered, and all super chats have been cleared. So let's get to your guys' free questions. Logan Hardy. Hey, Benji. 1, PS Studios should be ready next year for the blowout, right? 2, also 2025 seems like it will be peak year for PS5 with Grand Theft Auto 5 and a supposed big year for first party. What do you think? I would expect a pretty beefy showcase from PlayStation next year. I'd be surprised if there isn't, because as we've noted, Bend currently has no announced game. Santa Monica currently has no. And guys, some of these studios, it makes sense why they don't have an announced game, right? Santa Monica just shipped God of War not that long ago. I'm just listing the total studios first party that don't. Bend doesn't have a game announced. Santa Monica doesn't have a game announced. Guerrilla doesn't have a game announced, and I know some of these studios we actually kind of know what they're working on, like Guerrilla, some stuff is leaked and things like that, but again, I'm talking official announcements. Guerrilla don't got anything announced, Naughty Dog doesn't have anything announced, Sucker Punch doesn't have anything announced, like I could go down the list. There's so many Sony studios that just don't have a game announced right now. At some point they're gonna announce a lot of stuff just because a lot of these studios don't have things announced. So I would expect a very big showcase next year. I mean, I'd be surprised, very surprised if there's not one. And yeah, I talked about this last chat, Logan. I don't know if you saw it or not. We were having this conversation. I think that there's definitely a chance that 2025 has higher hardware sales than 2024 does for PlayStation, which would sound a bit surprising, being 5th year in the generation. That's not typically the curve you see. But I had mentioned 2024 as of now, and this could radically shift because we're not even in 2024 yet. But as of right now, when I look at games that have major hardware moving potential, I'm not talking a small bump. I'm talking about the potential to move a lot of consoles. 2025 to me looks stronger already than 2024, simply because the 1-2 punch combo of Grand Theft Auto 6 in 2025 and Monster Hunter Wilds in 2025. Those are both the sort of games you would expect to move a lot of hardware in various markets. So in 2024, right now at least, I don't see a lot of games that there's a lot of great games coming, but do I think Tekken 8 is going to move a ton of consoles? No, I don't. Do I think a lot of these games, do I think, Yakuza Infinite Wealth, or I guess it's Like a Dragon now. Do I think Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which I'm out of my mind hyped for? Do I think a ton of people are going to go out and buy, PS5 specifically for that game? No, I don't. So we'll see. There's always the chance that there are some massive hardware moving games lined up for 2024, not just from Sony, but from third parties. But right now, just looking at the data we got right now, 2025 looks like it has more hardware moving games than 24. But we got to see. Marvel Fanatic. Benji, do you think Spider-Man 3 will be announced in 2 years in advance like Spider-Man 1 and 2? So 2026 announcement, 2028 release? Probably. A lot of PlayStation games are announced like 2 years out. That's very common for them. Sony's not typically the publisher that announces big AAA first-party games the same year that they release. Oftentimes not even 1 year before release. Sony usually has a pretty long lead-in time. So sure. That wouldn't surprise me at all if it was announced 2 years before release. Now, who knows? But would I be surprised by that? No, not at all. Casual Gamer, what's your thoughts on WB Discovery saying they will double down on live service titles? Does it mean no more epic single-player titles / superhero titles? Do you think after a few games' failures, they will course correct and shift focus to single-player titles? Well, my message to WB would be, did you just see how Hogwarts Legacy sold? And that wasn't a games as a service? Pretty sure that's the most successful game you've ever had, probably. Like, overall, that's probably... overall, that's going to be more successful than any Arkham game long term. Like, it just is. Off the top of my head, I cannot think of a single game WB would have ever published. And I very much could be forgetting things. But considering the year one sales alone that we're already seeing out of Hogwarts Legacy, and this thing's going to have legs, and it's no live service. You guys know, people ask me about live service every single chat. Should WB be doing some games as a service, live service titles? Absolutely. Would my advice be to WB to completely focus only on that and not traditional single player games? I would say no, and you have literally Hogwarts Legacy staring you in the face on why you shouldn't do that. So that's all I'll say about it. Because you guys have heard me so many times talk about live service. Zinfamous, hey Benji, got a few questions. Thoughts on UFC 296? I don't want to see Colby near a title shot ever again. Also, Strickland and DDP are getting me more hyped up for that fight next month. So 296 overall on paper looked like an amazing card. In reality, it was still a good card. I would rate it as very good. In fact, I would rate the prelims as excellent. The main card, just good. Colby versus Leon, let's just be honest, that was a snooze fest. That was a very not great title fight. I agree with you. Colby should never get a title shot again after that performance. I wouldn't be as harsh. He should never get a title shot again if this was his first time at a title, but the guy's had 3 title fights now. You've had 3, and that's how you show up for your third, where literally for 3 rounds, it doesn't even look like you're trying to fight. Honestly, those first 3 rounds, Colby did nothing. He did nothing. Colby should never get another title shot after that performance. Absolutely not. Strickland versus DDP fighting in the crowd. Here's what I'll say. Is that very professional? No. You probably shouldn't be getting fist fights in the audience. But are they doing a good job hyping their fight? Yeah, I guarantee you that the pay-per-view buys for that are higher now than they would have been before after that fight. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind. So, good news for pay-per-view sales. They're getting the hype by fighting each other in the audience. And then the rest of 296, the flyweight fight was, Royval versus Pantoja. Good, solid technical fight. Wasn't amazing, but it was all right. Tony Ferguson needs to retire. I know he said he's not going to, but he needs to retire, homie. It's done, dude. And I never want to push that on people, but it's over, man. So Tony Ferguson should retire. I, honest to God, thought I saw the first death in the UFC for a minute whenever Bryce Mitchell got one of the nastiest KOs I've ever seen by Josh Emmett. Literally, there was a second there where I was like, did we just see the first death in the UFC? Like, it was scary. That was a terrifying knockout. And the prelims were awesome. Duquesta, yo Benji, even with PS5 record-breaking Novembers, the 25 million goal still not achievable. Also, if it's a record November, then what's with the 20% down year-over-year stat mean? I must not understand. Okay, so the way that shakes out in terms of you not understanding is that the down year-over-year was US only. Sony is saying that, and that was revenue. Sony is saying that globally, it was the biggest November ever. So even if US doesn't break the record, the US number was never small for November sales in the US. It just wasn't a record-breaking number. But the global November sales were a record breaker. So in other words, even though US wasn't able to break the all-time record, other markets like Europe, UK, etc., were able to lift up those numbers enough that overall worldwide it became a record-breaking result for PlayStation. And again, the 25 million goal, it's going to come down to Q1. Like, that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to what they are able to sell January through March. That's just the truth. It's going to all come down to that quarter. In fact, let's look at our poll results. I asked, will Sony hit their 25 million forecast? And you guys are feeling good. 63% of you said yes, they will. 37% of you say no, they won't. One thing I should definitely clarify about this. I meant to earlier. I apologize. So to be very, very clear, one thing I'm seeing floated around is the Ampere number of 22.5 million, and people saying, oh, they only need to sell 2.5 million more in order to hit 25 million. That's not actually accurate, because that Ampere number is looking at the January through December. That is their estimate. That is not the fiscal year shipments. And you have to remember, Sony had an enormous, and when I say enormous, I mean enormous, January through March result in 2023. So the actual number is not 2.5 million. I can't remember the math. I think it's something like 7 million is what they have to hit between January and March, depending on how December shakes out. So keep that in mind, guys. They don't need to sell 2.5 million consoles between January through March, because if that was the number, I would be like, it's a lock. They're going to hit it. That is not what's happening. Some people are mistaking the Ampere estimate and conflating that with the fiscal year estimate. They are not the same thing. Those are two completely different numbers. They don't need to sell 2.5 million in January through March, just to clarify. They need to sell a lot more than that. Just wanted to clear that up. I meant to hit that way earlier. Now, it still doesn't mean that they're not going to hit their number. I just mean they do have a much higher hill to climb than the 2.5 million that's being floated by the Ampere numbers. So just to clear that up. They're different metrics that you're looking at. Zinfamous, thoughts on everything going on with Bungie, firing staff, missing targets, and there's the possibility Sony may take them over. Do you wonder if Bungie was the main issue with previous partnerships? Again, it's super weird. One thing that is very weird about the position I'm in, again, a lot of Bungie devs follow me, including people in very high positions at Bungie. So, man, sometimes I get asked tough questions, and it's tough for me to answer because, like, a lot of these people follow me. Okay, my thoughts on Bungie. There's no doubt that Bungie is in a very tough spot right now. And some of that is going to come down to decisions that are being made by leadership. That's just the truth, right? I do not work at Bungie. I am also not someone like Jason Schreier that has tons of contacts, that's trying to figure this sort of thing out. Anytime I talk to devs, I'm like the least prodding dude ever in terms of like interacting with devs. I basically never go out of my way to DM them and be like, hey man, want to talk? It's basically people that reach out to me. If you reach out to me and want to start a conversation, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. I'm never going to pester you. So again, do I know all the ins and outs exactly about what's happening at Bungie the same way Jason Schreier does? Absolutely not even remotely close to that. At the same time, I know there's a lot of good people at Bungie. But here's the truth. Leadership is putting them into some very tough situations. And part of it is, listen, I've said this for a long time. Destiny is way too hard to attract new players or returning players. The biggest issue facing Destiny right now is that, in my opinion. Again, as someone from the outside, maybe Bungie has analytical data that points to something different. And the whole reason that I'm pointing out, by the way, Destiny is because right now Destiny is the cash cow for Bungie. Bungie's success is fully determined by the state of Destiny. Now, that can change moving forward. If Marathon becomes a massive hit, then, Marathon's going to carry a lot of weight for them too, right? But in the current climate, it's all about Destiny for their financials. And I've said this going back a long time as someone that was a hardcore Destiny player. I put over 1,000 hours in Destiny 1. I don't know how many I put into Destiny 2, but I played it super regularly all the way through the Beyond Light expansion, and then I fell off. The problem is it's so hard to get back into Destiny if you ever bounce out of it or if you're ever a new player, simply because the way that game is structured. They have removed so many things. I mean, as far as I remember, the original campaign of Destiny 2 isn't even in the game anymore. They do not do a good job of onboarding you at all. The whole reason I never have gone back to Destiny, by the way, is that I played all the way through Beyond Light. I fell off for a little bit because there was like other stuff going on, and Witch Queen came out, and then a little bit after Witch Queen had come out, I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to Destiny. I haven't played in, I don't know what it was, 7-8 months or something like that. And I got back in the game, and I literally had no idea what was happening. From a story perspective, from like the game guiding you where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. And this is coming from someone that's super familiar with Destiny. And I was like, what is happening? I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing right now or how I access parts of the story of this game. Imagine what the game feels like to a brand new player. You're probably completely overwhelmed by what even is this game, besides the gameplay. The gameplay has always been top industry tier, in my opinion. I love the way Destiny plays, and I love its world and its universe, but they have made that game so obtuse for returning or new players. Live service games depend on that, constantly attracting new players, people that fall off constantly coming back. Like if you fall off Fortnite for 6 months, who cares? You go back into Fortnite, it's so easy to get back into. It's not the case for Destiny. It's much, much harder to get back into. So yeah, they have to do something like that, or I think that's the future of Destiny in general. I don't think it instantly dies or anything like that. I'm sure Destiny will be around for many, many years to come. It's too hard to get returning and new players into the game. It just is. It's too hard. So yeah, they're in a tough position, but I'm not on the Bungie's doomed train. Some people are in the full-on Bungie's going to close its doors soon. I'm not in that spot, but are they facing issues? Sure. That's undeniable. I think we had some super chats. Let me hit those super chats. Yo, Plastic Hearts Podcast. What's up, dude? I haven't seen you in chat in forever. One of the OGs here. I'm just scrolling and I see it. Plastic Hearts Podcast. Yeah, Benji boy. Great to see you, Plastic Hearts. Great to see you back in chat, man. It's been a hot minute. I hope you're doing well. Rest Striker 85 saying hi. What's up, Rest Striker? Thank you, JCat, for modding. Gabriel Cantero, with what looks like a very generous super chat. I don't know the currency for this, but it looks very, very generous. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, saying thanks for reporting on it, Benji. And it says that's your first ever super chat, Gabrielle. Thank you so much. I very, very much appreciate that. Again, I apologize. I don't know the currency, but it looks like an extremely generous one. I'm not sure what that shakes out to. But it doesn't matter. All that matters is it could be a penny. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. That's very, very, very kind. And of course, I'm always happy to report on the video game industry. You know, it was a tough year for me mentally. But here's the thing. You can get through. You know, one thing that I've thought lately, and I'm not going to go on a big personal spiel, a big personal tangent, but listen, maybe this is going to help someone. Maybe there's one person watching this live chat that's had a horrible year, that's going through some tough times. And let me just say one thing that really helped me all of a sudden. You know, I spent a lot of this year and a lot of my life, you know, tearing myself down, right? And always looking at the bad thing. And I think that's very easy to do. And, you know, that might sound surprising to you guys because in general, I'm very positive on social media, you know, on these live chats. I try and be very, you know, much more positive. And part of that is because internally, I'm so negative, right? And I don't want anyone else to feel those sort of feelings, right? So it's like, no, let's put positive vibes out there. You know, I don't want to drag anyone else down into the sort of place that I am in, right? And not, I look often at the negative in terms of games or in terms of entertainment. Not at all. What I mean is like life, right? And it's a very easy thing to fall into where you're constantly looking at, I'm so bad, I'm so terrible. My life's so bad. I've made mistakes. I'm headed down a bad place. And, one thing I started thinking of is instead of being in that headspace, one thing that's very important is start being thankful, right? Start being thankful. Yeah, sure. Maybe there's bad times, man. Maybe you did make some mistakes, but what are some things you can be thankful for, right? Maybe, you screwed something up, but what's something you did good, right? Every single day that you wake up, it's kind of shocking that it even happened. And, this goes into my science brain, right? A lot of you guys know, I said earlier, I love astronomy. I love physics. I love things like this. The statistical odds that you would even get a chance to exist are so low. Think about how many series of patterns had to happen for you to even exist, to get 1 minute of existence, not even a whole life, 1 minute, right? Think about how many choices. And a lot of times people go back to their parents, but it wasn't just their parents. It was your parents and then their parents and then their parents and then their generations and generations of people, the earth existing, the sun existing, the universe existing. The odds that you even got 1 minute to take a breath are infinitely against you, and yet you got to be here and you got to experience it. And I started just being thankful for that. I could have never existed. And, sure, maybe sometimes are hard, but the fact that I even got to exist and got to experience anything is really special and something most atoms in the universe will never get to experience, right? Your average atom in the universe probably ends up in an asteroid hurtling through space that doesn't experience anything. But we got to experience it, and that's something very, very special. So for anyone that is struggling, that's had a hard year, that's maybe had a hard several years, even a hard week, it's important. Have that thankfulness. Sorry to go on a tangent, but if that helps even one person, it's worth it. Okay. Back to your guys' stuff. And thanks for a great turnout. This chat was huge for turnout today. Really appreciate it. Blazing Flame. Benji, hi, what's your thoughts on Insomniac's roadmap / games leak? Do you think this leak will delay these games? Do you think they will be able to release all these games by 2032? And how do you feel about Insomniac's games having this huge plan for Marvel games? Do you think it will pan out? Are you excited? How do you feel about exclusivity for all X-Men until 2035? Okay, so for me personally, right, because I ran that poll earlier about how you guys feel about Insomniac, but I didn't give my own thoughts on this. I'm actually really excited for that roadmap. I love Spider-Man 1. I love Spider-Man Miles Morales. I love Spider-Man 2. I've platinumed every single one of those games. Sign me up for more Marvel from Insomniac. The one thing I will say, it is a bit of a bummer that, and I'm not going to list everything here, but it is a bummer that it appears we're going to get some non-Marvel content from Insomniac, but not a ton, right? I would say it's pretty safe to call, at least in the near-term future, Insomniac a Marvel-focused studio. Not Marvel only, but Marvel-focused. The majority of their output is going to be Marvel games. That said, I love what they're doing with the Marvel games so far that we've seen with Spider-Man. I'm a Marvel fan in general, even though I do feel the MCU has really gone through some issues. But in general, I love Marvel. So if my personal take, very excited by that roadmap. I plan on playing every single one of those games. So very excited. Now, this is the big question, man, is can they deliver this many games in the window? I think I saw the math shakes out to, in an 8-year window, Insomniac would ship 6 games. I think that's how it comes out to, if you include Spider-Man 2. I'd have to look again at the math, but I think that's what it was. It was 6 games in 8 years. That is wild. That is a pace that essentially no studio does. If Insomniac pull that off, I mean, that is shocking. And when I say shocking, I mean in a positive way. That is absolutely stunning to be able to do something like that. So, do I think they'll do it? Here's my hunch. My hunch is they'll get and this is just a hunch. This isn't anything other than that, right? Do I think that there's a good chance they'll get most of them out in that window? Yes. But the odds of none of those seeing a delay by a couple years seems very... It would be like a best case scenario. We all know how often games get delayed. So I'm going to say they don't actually quite hit every one of these games by the dates that are on their roadmap, but I suspect they will get many of them in just because Insomniac is so efficient and fast at development. So many of them, I'm not going to predict everyone makes it, but if they do, that's incredible. Timmer72299, hope you're doing well, Benji. No question today. I'm doing much better, Timmer, and I hope you're doing fantastic, my friend. Yoda Soda, hi, in regards to Insomniac games leak, do you think those targeted release years for the upcoming... we just talked about that. Or a chance for delays. Yep, we just talked about that. Yoda Soda, I suspect you'll get most of them in that window, but, you know, don't be surprised if a game or two slips. Ghost Tunnels, how Insomniac or other studios should have responded to ransomware hack? Pay the asked fee? Let it all leak like now? Do you think these leaks will impact the release schedule and delay them by months or years? Man, it's such a good question. Here's the reason why these companies never give in to these ransom attacks. It's like really a two-pronged reason. First of all, let's say that you give in to them. You're simply empowering them to know that they can continue to do this to other people and continue to get money. You're setting a precedent, right? You're saying, hey, I'll pay you. Well, what's to keep that same group from coming back and hacking you in a couple of years, right? They find another way to get in, and then they ransom you again, and they know you'll pay them because you already paid them once. And if you've already paid them and you're Insomniac, well, if we can get into Naughty Dog, then what's to say the Naughty Dog's not going to pay us, right? Or if we can get into Playground Studios, what's to say the Playground? So first of all, you don't want to set that precedent that, hey, we're going to pay you off, we're going to give you what you want, and now you know you can keep doing it. The second reason why most of these studios aren't going to do it is what keeps them from still releasing the information, right? If you pay them, you're assuming that they're just going to not release it. They already hacked you in the first place and stole your data. They're clearly not ethical in the first place. So if they already have given you proof that they're not an ethical entity to work with, how do you know you don't pay them millions of dollars and they still release it? There's no contract. It's not like they're like, oh, you know what? That was so kind of you. I'm going to just now, out of the goodness of my heart, not release this data. I mean, maybe they take that stance, or maybe they take your money and insta-post it. So it doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to pay these people. So I think they handled it as best as they could. There's really nothing you can do. And when I say best as I could, I mean once the data was stolen. Maybe there's better security measures and things like that they could have done beforehand. I'm no security expert. I can't say anything in regards to that. But in terms of the situation they were stuck with, there was really nothing else they could do but just, take the brunt of it. Do I think that just because this stuff leaked, it will result in delays? I would say no, but I would say keep in mind that so much of this stuff is targeted for years away. That even if things shift, games get canceled, other things get made, plans change, story details change, characters details change. None of that may be related to the hacking of itself because we're talking about projects that are years away, right? We're not talking about stuff that's 6 months away. So here's the thing. Do I suspect all of these leaks we're getting about their future roadmap, it's going to look identical to that in every way, shape, or form? No. Things are going to change. Maybe the games that are released are the same, but maybe timing's different. Maybe gameplay elements are different, etc., etc. But I don't think the leak itself specifically would change plans. I mean, maybe in marketing, sure. I mean, I think it could radically change marketing plans because they would have gone in assuming none of this stuff was known, right? Now we all know about it. So That is the biggest change, I would say. Not delays, not, things like that, gameplay details. I would say the biggest impact this would probably have on Insomniac in terms of plans would be on the marketing side, because now they have to just go in assuming most people know about this because it was spread so far. I mean, it's unavoidable. If you're on the internet and care about video games, you saw this. There was just no way around it. It spread so far and wide. But marketing. Yeah, marketing would probably be the thing that got impacted the most on how they decide to market this stuff and announce it. Cameron Swear, hey Benji, thoughts on X-Men deal details? Seems like a hefty price tag for Sony. I'm not sure it feels worth it. I'm so happy with Insomniac's roadmap. Super hyped for Wolverine, Venom, Wolverine, Spider-Man, etc. Yeah, very excited for the release slate personally, but I also like Marvel. I could see if you're someone that doesn't like Marvel and you don't like superheroes, you would probably look at this roadmap and be pretty disappointed, because that is the bulk of what they're going to be working on for the next, 8 to 10 years or whatever. But personally, someone that likes that stuff, I'm very excited for it. In terms of the deal, the licensing is extremely expensive. Like, wow, we talked about that earlier. Disney and Marvel are getting paid. Do I think it's worth it? It is absolutely worth it if they can get these future Marvel games to sell like Spider-Man does. That's always been the big question, right? We've talked about this on this chat for years. The big debate with Marvel games has been, will someone be able to take other Marvel IP and get them to be able to sell like the Spider-Man games are? Because as of now, Spider-Man is still kind of the outlier, right? We're not seeing other Marvel projects, and I think there's various reasons for that. We've gone into this before, but I think there's various reasons why we haven't seen Marvel games sell like the Spider-Man games have. If Insomniac and Sony are able to get these other Marvel games to sell like a Spider-Man can, this is totally worth it. I mean, those games are selling so many units. They're making profit every single game off of them. We know that now. We knew that before by assumption, but now we literally have the data. They're all very profitable, all the Marvel games. Even with their hefty price tags, they're still very profitable. And there's no doubt that the Spider-Man games have sold a lot of hardware. So as long as they can sell like Spider-Man, yeah, it's good. But they do have to sell a lot. Let's be very clear here, guys. The budgets that's associated with these future Marvel games, partially because of the huge licensing fees, they need to sell a lot. They can't be like even decent sellers. They have to sell a lot of units. Tonsi K, over here in Germany, I couldn't find many PS5s in the stores. Couldn't it be US declined in November because Sony put many units to Europe? I work retail, so I have visibility of this. It's not supply constrained in the US. But again, PS5 didn't sell low volumes in November. It just wasn't record breaking. It's not like they sold no units. You know what I mean? But I would say specifically like inventory, because that did impact PlayStation in the past. There was times it was, as we all know, massively supply constrained in the US. The PS5 is not currently supply constrained in the United States. Matthias Hase, hope you're feeling better, Benji. Happy to see you're back. I'm feeling so much better, Matthias. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well as well. JC Zero Edge, hey Benji, do you think it's a failure of games media to not cover the leaks? Another one of these, they covered Capcom, Switch 2, Xbox. I know the personal information angle, but they can report games news. Again, yeah, it's got to be individual. I don't want to call anyone out either way on that. You guys know I'm always very careful in regards to like ethics things and things like that, to take hardcore stances. And the reason for that isn't... unless something's like really egregious. I mean, if you're doing something like really, really horrible, okay, then, at that, there's certain things I think we all know. It's like, yo, bro, that was so jacked up. Like, yeah, I'm going to take a hard stance on it. But there are so many things in life in general, even something as like this, that I'm very cautious to take like super hard stances. And it's not because of a fear of backlash or judging or anything like that, people judging me. It's actually the opposite. Who the hell am I to be super aggressively judging anyone? You know what I mean? I don't think that I am some moral authority on much in life. I've made shitloads of mistakes in my life, varying from very small mistakes to very large mistakes. And the reality is that every human being on the planet has. None of us are perfect people. None of us are always good. None of us are always right. None of us are always bad. None of us are always terrible. We are a spectrum. And a lot of things in life, I'm cautious to take like a super hardcore judgmental wave my finger stance on, because who am I to do that? Right? I'm no moral compass for you. I shouldn't be a moral compass for you. No one should look at Benji and be like, wow, that guy's my moral compass. That's the last thing you should do. So I'm careful on this stuff, on like super calling out, oh, you did this way, you shouldn't have done that. You did this that way, you shouldn't have done that. Again, there is definitely hardcore messed up things people do that most of us can agree on is super, super messed up. In this case, if you choose to cover this leak in some ways, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're such a bad person. If you also choose to not cover this, I'm not going to go, you're a piece of crap. Why aren't you covering this? Listen, everyone's going to handle the situation how they feel best. Maybe some of us will agree with, and some of us won't, but I'm no moral authority to judge somebody to a very harsh degree over something like this. Danger Man, the leaks are absolutely crazy. They are. Yeah, it might be the worst leak I've ever seen, actually, in gaming. In terms of, like, the amount of details. This is the most detailed leak I've ever seen. Ever. I've never seen a leak this detailed. I mean, I think it's worse than the Capcom one. Danger Man says this leak was even more crazy than the GTA 6 leak. I agree. This is the biggest leak I think I've ever seen, especially from a financial standpoint. I mean, the amount that leaked financially is I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like this leak in terms of financials. Never. Dylan Stewart, hey Benji, hope you're doing well. I'm doing great, Dylan. I hope you're doing really good too. Theo, this is the biggest leak in the games industry, in my opinion. I agree. It's the most detailed leak I've ever seen. Guillermo Lima, hey Benji, hope you're doing well. I'm happy to finally be able to watch your streams again. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you for the kind words, Guillermo. I'm glad to be back streaming. The vibes have been great. I know that it looks like JCat's been having to mod some people, which is a little out of the ordinary. I think part of it might be because of JDub. For some weird reason, there's certain people in the PlayStation community, not most of them, but there's like been this weird thing pop up in the last couple of weeks where some Sony people are convinced I'm like an Xbox guy now, which is a little weird. Nothing's changed in how I talk or cover games. I'm the exact same I've always been. But some of the people that are more like super, and I'm not saying J-Dub is, I'm saying he tweeted that he wanted me to go live. And I know, some of his followers are going to be pretty, let's just say intense. And I suspect that's where it might be coming from, JCat. I suspect some of his, I don't even know where this came from, but I just noticed it pop up in the last couple of weeks. Some super hardcore PlayStation guys being like, you're an Xbox guy. One day, I say this whenever this pops up, because it happens, I just had to block an Xbox dude like a week ago, because he was screaming at me about copium, because I said that Naughty Dog probably made the right decision to, cancel The Last of Us multiplayer. I would say it's a good sign that my coverage is pretty fair to both, that I constantly am triggering either PlayStation fanboys or Xbox fanboys. Like, they're constantly triggered at me one way or the other, so. But JCat, it's probably why you're getting a little bit more than normal. I think that's where it's coming from. All right, let me see. I'm still going to go a little bit longer, but it's been a while since I scrolled down. So I think there might have been some super chats and stuff. Yeah, we got a super chat here from Super Donut 1988 with a 5. Thank you so much. And it says that's your first super chat. That's very, very kind, Super Donut. Benji, what are thoughts on the rumored Xbox Next console possibly releasing in 2026? Well, I apologize that that's what you used your super chat on, Super Donut, because you probably weren't in here earlier in the stream. We did talk about this, so I'll make it brief for people that were already here earlier. I super appreciate the super chat, by the way, especially as it's your first one. My thoughts on it are that I personally don't think that it's real. It just doesn't line up with most of the other stuff we know. As far as I'm aware, the 2026 Next console is coming from a singular source. I don't think we've had anyone else back this rumor up yet. Doesn't mean that that person's wrong, but as far as I'm aware, no one else has corroborated this report of a new Xbox in 2026. So right now I'm leaning on the side that it doesn't launch in 2026. But like I said earlier, the only scenario I could envision if Phil Spencer himself out of nowhere said, Benji, I'm launching a new Xbox and it's coming in 2026, and gave me no other details. Like I said earlier, my prediction would be that they're doing something weird with the series lining, and that Microsoft isn't going to do traditional hardware cycles anymore, and maybe they do something crazy like say, okay, when this new Xbox launches, Series X is our new base console, Series S no longer gets support, and X and this new console are the ones that get development resources. And it essentially becomes like an iPhone model where just at some nebulous point they cut off support for an older device, and it's just constantly new devices iterating off the other ones, and we don't get set cycles. That would be, now I'm not telling you that's what I think is going to happen. I'm just saying that is the only thing that would even kind of make sense to me if that was true, because otherwise a brand new generation, as we think of generations in 2026, makes no sense. It'd only be a 6-year dev cycle, or 6-year cycle, which by modern terms is actually kind of short. We're leaning into longer and longer generations. 6 would be pretty quick, and it would also be weird to have a really quick generation, especially when this generation had a delayed start due to the pandemic. So it don't look like it makes much sense to me, but we'll see. And thank you for your super chat. We're going to go for like 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to go. But thank you for an amazing turnout today, guys. This was one of the bigger chats we've had in quite some time. Thank you for the support. Thank you for, guys, I cannot tell you how much I'm glad to be back to streaming. Could not tell you. And I'm glad so many of you guys appreciate the live chat. Live chat homies, what's up? So many of you guys have been here with me for so many years. I really appreciate it. So many. There's so many names. It's always exciting to see the new names, but then it's always awesome to people see so many names. Joseki, Symphonous, Plastic Hearts was back in the chat, Benji, Highlander, J-Cat, it's Blazing Flames here all the time. Ghost Tunnels is there. Cameron, I could go down the list. There's so many of you. Timmer, right? There's so many of you guys. Yoda Soda. I don't want to miss anyone. There's so many of you that have been here with me for so many years. Live chat crew represent. Like 10 more minutes, guys, and I gotta go. Trying to find where I left off. I apologize. Drift23. Insomniac Games leak surprised me. Is this usual? Do game studios plan out 10 years of titles? Do you think Insomniac will release games on these targeted years? And do you think they have enough teams for it? So here's what I'll say. Is it becoming more and more common to plan out, game releases far out? Yeah, it is becoming more common simply because how long games take to make, right? You got to think, if you're starting a brand new project right now, like today you're spinning up a new project, especially let's say if it's a new IP. If it's not a new IP, maybe you can be a bit quicker. But let's just say you are a AAA studio and you're spinning up a new IP and you decide to start today. You're probably looking at least 6 years. that might even be longer. Hey, if you get a brand new IP from conception phase to launch within 5 years, you're doing well. So like I said, for a new IP, you're spinning up a new project right now. And I know the Insomniac ones aren't new IPs technically, so just wait a sec. But I'm just saying, you're asking, is it common? You are seeing stuff be projected further and further out because games take so long, right? It's not like you start a project now and you're done in 3 years. It's like you start a project now and you're done in 6 years, right? So yeah, roadmaps are getting pushed further out because of dev times. And what makes the Insomniac situation, I think, a little bit different, where they're so aggressive, right? There's so many games targeted and for so many years, is because this is like a big, giant licensing deal, right? It's not just, let's say, Santa Monica spinning up a God of War game, right? Which is an IP they own, an IP they control. They don't have to talk to anyone else but, Sony management about what they're going to do. Insomniac is striking a deal, like a long-term licensing deal with a other entity. It's a completely other company. So that's part of why there's so many projected games, in my opinion, is because it's part of a broad deal. It's not a deal on a singular title, right? You wouldn't probably see this sort of roadmap if Insomniac had signed a deal for just Wolverine, right? It would be, maybe in their heads they would have some other ideas, but they wouldn't have like a full-on, like, here's a roadmap. But with this deal with Marvel, it appears it's a broad deal encompassing multiple games, and Marvel's not going to want a nebulous promise like, hey, we'll deliver you, maybe 2 games in 10 years. No, Marvel's going to want to say, if we're giving you this IP and this license, what are the terms? What games are you going to make for me in that deal? And I think that's part of why this roadmap is so detailed, is because, let's be honest, like 80 to 90% of it covers a licensing contract. Sagan Traveler, Benji, glad to see you live. Glad to see you too, Sagan. Aldogar128, which exclusive AAA games are currently available on PS5? Just Spider-Man 2, Returnal, and Ratchet & Clank are available on PC. Oh, that is a good question. If we're excluding PC, it's a great question, actually. I'd have to think about it. Forbidden West isn't yet, right? I know it's coming to PC, but that hasn't launched yet as far as I'm aware. That's next year, right? Or am I crazy? Did I just completely forget? I'm pretty sure they said next year, right? Yeah, early 2024. Technically Forbidden West, though that will obviously change, as Forbidden West is coming to PC early next year. Spider-Man 2, but as of now, if you're saying today, Forbidden West is not available on PC. I think that's it. If we're talking first-party PS5 games, right? First-party PlayStation 5 titles. Demon Souls, right? Demon Souls never came to PC. So I think it would be those 3, and one of them is about to. But as far as I'm aware, it would be Demon Souls, Spider-Man 2, and Forbidden West, which is coming soon. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but those would be the 3. Dylan Stewart, did they cancel the Spider-Man multiplayer game, or is that in development? I can't tell you anything in terms of that. I wouldn't anyways. If like Insomniac told me it was still in development, I wouldn't say anything about that either way. But I think people are assuming it's canceled. I believe that there's no confirmation, but it's not on the roadmap. That doesn't necessarily mean all development has stopped, but I think people are assuming it's canceled because it's not on the roadmap. But that's all I can say about it. Human, I don't think any of these games as a service games come out other than Marathon, and the other studio started by Bungie devs and Helldivers, of course. I will say it's a huge bummer if that Spider-Man one never sees the light of day. I will not share any details about that project, but what I saw I thought looked amazing. I would have played the heck out of that Spider-Man multiplayer game. I would have been all over that game. So my personal hope is that they reuse some of the ideas from that in some way. Even if it doesn't end up becoming its giant own thing, I would love to see some of those ideas in like a multiplayer mode for Spider-Man 3 or something. But I hope they do something with it because I really thought that looked pretty incredible. All right, we've gone long enough that I'm going for 10 more minutes, and that's an exactly 2-hour stream, which is beefy. A beefy 2-hour chat today. But there was so many questions. There was so many super chats. There was, like I said, a huge chunk of the chat was over 100 viewers. 10 minutes and I'm hard out. 10 minutes. Alejandro Lopez, why Xbox is doing so terrible? Well, it depends on how you look at Xbox. As a business, we talked about this last chat. Is Xbox as a business doing terrible? Objectively, no. They're having record levels of revenue. Now, in terms of hardware, we just got to be straight up honest. Their hardware has not been good, and their Xbox hardware has not been good for some time. The thing I said last chat is that the only explanation I have for why they are having so much issues turning hardware around for Xbox is that truly making their games as ubiquitous as they did, particularly on PC, cannibalized their hardware market even more than I expected. I'll be honest. I was always on record kind of being like, will you see some cannibalization from PC? Sure. But, PC and console are largely different markets. I don't know that you're going to, see extreme cannibalization due to PC. And I've had to rethink that. I have had to rethink that with the way Xbox hardware has been performing, let's say, over the last year. It's the only thing I can really think of. Is that PC has very much, cannibalized them. Edelgar128, do you think one day PS Plus will come on PC like PC Game Pass? Oh, wow. That is a good question, man. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me, will PlayStation games eventually come day one on PC? I don't think anyone's ever asked me if PS Plus would come to PC. Like, the subscription, like extra and stuff where you get the games. Wow. Adelgar, that is a fantastic and unique question. Here's the thing. I think the only way it could happen is Sony would have to have their own launcher. So that's the question you have to ask yourself. If PlayStation ever builds their own game launcher, like in a big way, like a full-on PlayStation Store game launcher, like Epic Game Store or Steam is on PC, I actually could see that, sure. Because the reason that Game Pass is able to exist on PC is because you play the Game Pass games through the, Windows Store, right? You don't play them through Steam. Xbox and Microsoft have their own game launcher, so they're able to do that. So Adelgar, that's the thing. Sony will have to fully build their complete own game launcher, storefront, all of that stuff on PC. I will say I don't know if that ever happens, but if they did, let's say Sony did announce that, then yes, I suspect you would see PS Plus as an option on that. But they would have to literally build their own storefront, like Epic Game Store or any of the others. Batman Forever. Benji, please tell that the roadmap is out of date. Wolverine is a 2026 title. Isn't that way too far away? And other games are almost a decade away. Are those deadlines the real deal? I couldn't tell you. Put it this way. Is that slide real? Yes, we know it's real. Insomniac has not told me anything about, the timing of their games. And even if they did, I wouldn't tell you guys. You guys know I don't do hardcore leaks like that. Every once in a while, I'll hint at stuff if I hear something, and only if I think it's very an innocent thing for me to hint at. But even if they told me, hey, that's out of date, we're actually launching blah, 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 and blah, 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 I wouldn't come on the stream and tell you guys that. But they haven't, to be clear. Hugh, man, I have a feeling Jim Ryan promised resources that the new regime canceled. How did Naughty Dog not know you need a huge team for successful games as a service? I couldn't tell you anything about what's happening over there in terms of that sort of stuff. Couldn't tell you. I got no inside visibility to what's going on with the whole, games as a service and Jim Ryan plan and stuff like that. Adelgar, is Phantom Liberty better than Blood and Wine Hearts of Stone? Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's the same level of that sort of expansion. Which one you like more might come down to just plainly which game you like more, right? Settings are completely different. Gameplay is completely different. One of them's a fantasy, swords and stuff game. The other one is, futuristic, cyber. It's basically a shooter RPG. So, but here's the thing. I would say very comparable. Yeah, they're both excellent, beefy, incredible expansions to their games. And which one you like more might come strictly down to which game you like more. But I would put it at the same level. Yeah, it's like a Blood and Wine level expansion to me. Yeah, I mean, Phantom Liberty is excellent. It's excellent. All right, we're wrapping it up. We're down to the last 4 minutes. Randomly picking some stuff super fast. Was there any channel members that came in late that haven't gotten a question answered? Hamish, what's up, Hamish? Hamish channel member. Dang, second one this week. I missed it. We'll be watching the replay. Technically, it's not the same week, even though it is within a 7-day window, because I streamed on Friday last week and then on a Wednesday this week. But it is 2 in less than 7 days. Yeah. People were asking me to do this one, so I did it. JCat, why do you think Insomniac was targeted in the first place? Why not another Sony studio or third studio? Was it just that the hacker saw a vulnerability? JCat, that's my guess. Obviously, I have no idea how they were able to get into Insomniac. My hunch is that it wasn't like specifically because they were like, screw Insomniac. I'm guessing they just somehow found a way in. Past their security, whether that was a phishing thing. That's the most common way that hacks happen. It sounds so simple, but oftentimes the way that these things go through is like actually through some of the simplest mistakes someone makes. I don't know that that's what happened. I don't think anyone really knows yet on how they were able to get in. Maybe they do and I missed this, but my hunch is that they probably tried a bunch of people and Insomniac's what they got in. And so that's what happened. I think that's my guess. They were probably trying to get anyone they could, and Insomniac was the one they were able to get. But it is wild. I wasn't trying to be mean to J-Dub. J-Dub has actually always been nice to me. My thing on Twitter in terms of like blocking people for certain sides and things like that, I try to avoid all console wars. If someone's very nice to me, I generally will be nice back to them. And J-Dub, as far as I knew, had always been nice to me. And even today, when he tagged me to go stream, I don't think he was being mean. I just, he's going to have some pretty aggressive followers. So, J-Dub's always been nice to me. Again, as far as I know, unless something has changed. But he was just asking me to stream. He didn't say, like, Benji, you suck. J-Dub just tagged me. He's like, Benji, talk about these sales numbers. And maybe some of his more aggressive fans saw it and decided to go crazy. Samuel Tolbert, great friend of mine, maybe getting the last question. Samuel is getting the last question. All right. And then I got to go. I apologize, guys, but we went for 2 hours today. We went for a beefy stream. So we're going to end it there. Samuel Tolbert, check out his work. A great friend of mine. Does stuff for Windows Central, all sorts of stuff. Great journalist. Give him a follow on Twitter or X or whatever. He's a great dude. More documents coming out. As of November, Sony was asking Insomniac to cut 50 to 75 staff. Oh, I missed this. warning that other teams would see similar cuts and at least one studio is being shut down. Wow. Man, dude, the games industry is just brutal right now, isn't it? Dang, and we know Naughty Dog got some layoffs too. It's crazy what we're seeing with layoffs this year, man. It is insane. Is this the worst? This has got to be the worst year ever for layoffs, right? I mean, I know that there's always layoffs and studios being shut down. Like, it's a thing that always exists in the industry, unfortunately, but I cannot think of a year like this year, man. This year, it's just been like constant, and it's been like everyone, just so much layoffs. Man, that is sad to hear, especially for a studio like Insomniac, who is so successful. I mean, it's sad anywhere. Anytime anyone loses their job. Hopefully this doesn't go through. That's my fingers crossed. But, hopefully Insomniac's able to not cut any staff. But that's horrible. That's so sad to hear. Joseki, Benji, you need to work on triggering the Nintendo fanboys too. You are slacking. There's a running joke. There's a running joke in my Discord. My Discord's tiny. There's 6 people in it or something. But it's funny you say that, Joseki, because it's like a running joke that one of the people in there always gives me crap on how 90% of my audience is PlayStation and Xbox. I don't have a ton of Nintendo focused followers, and that's because I'm always very honest about it. When I come on these chats and whenever I interact with you guys and stuff, I try to be just literally as honest as possible as I can about things. And I play Nintendo the least. That's just the truth. Still love Nintendo. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be in my top. It's going to be in my top games of the year. It was my game of the year until Alan Wake 2. I play it the least definitely of any of the main platforms, but I still put in, I don't know if you can see this. I still put in 87 hours, almost 90 hours, into Tears of the Kingdom this year. Maybe you can see that. I don't know. Put 23 hours into Metroid Prime Remastered. I still like Nintendo. I like Nintendo a lot. But it's definitely the platform I play the least. I play the most on PlayStation and Xbox. And as funny as this sounds, I'd play on Nintendo more if they had achievements. But yeah, it's like a running joke. Benji, you always have the PlayStation fans and the Xbox fans going to war in your replies. If you ever want to crack up, just look, I could tweet anything. I could tweet the sky's blue, and because I play a lot of both, I have a lot of followers from both sides, and there's console wars in every tweet. But Nintendo is definitely the least represented in my fan base, and that's partially because I just play Nintendo the least. Most of the time when I'm not tweeting news, if I'm just tweeting about playing a game, it's PlayStation or Xbox related. And then since this person was so nice, I'm going to answer this last one, and I got to go. I've been going for 2 hours. The Deadly 8. Benji, hope you answer my question. I will, Deadly 8, because you were so nice about squeezing that in at the end. I am a huge Activision Blizzard games fan and play a lot of their games, and I am worried that the appeal will result in the termination of the merger or even a split. Wait, the appeal? Oh, okay. So you're worried that this, basically the FTC is still trying to break this thing up. I would not be that worried about it, Deadly 8. I wouldn't really sweat this. Now that it's gotten already this far, I just can't see anyone going back on anything. It's done. It's essentially the FTC just kind of, doing their last big chance to try. Deadly, here's what I'll say. I am no legal expert. Someone like Hogue Law is going to be much, much better at telling you the in and outs of the legal system and whether this has any merit or anything like that. But as an outside observer, I would not be that worried about it, to be honest. I'd be shocked if this gets broken up at this point. They've already gone through so much to get here. Deadly, I wouldn't sweat it. I don't think it's going to get blocked or broken up or anything like that. All right, last one. Brian Cutler, you get the last one. You guys keep squeezing these in. Brian Cutler, now Insomniac, I want Sunset Overdrive, Storm, and Nightcrawler. Benji, hope you read my comment. I guess you mean that, you hope that the gameplay for their other, if they do those sort of characters in the future, you hope it plays like a Sunset Overdrive, or you mean like a game in that style with those characters? It'd be sweet. Sure. Sunset Overdrive's awesome. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what they can do. All right, guys, I went for 2 hours today. Turnout was excellent. Thank you so much for all the kind words. JCat, thanks for helping to mod the chat. I know there was a little bit more modding needed today than as is typical, it appears, but it wasn't still that crazy. Like 99% of comments were good. So thank you guys. Thank you for the super chats. Every one of you is amazing. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thanks for helping keep me motivated and always supporting the live chat. We have such a great community here. Like the video if you haven't already. It helps that YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We typically do one of these chats every single week, except for whenever I'm a complete mental head case. But when I'm not a mental head case, we do one of these chats every single week. Again, thoughts with Insomniac right now because this really royally sucks for them. And thanks everyone for another great live chat. It made my day today. So thank you so much, everyone. As always, stay safe, play some games, and I will see you guys either very soon on Twitter or X, or I will see you on YouTube next week. Have a great one, guys. Love y'all. Bye-bye. 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 Whoops. Well, at some point, I'm actually still going because clicked the wrong thing. Bye. Love you. Love you. Bye.